Finding the out is having a bit of a renaissance, eh? Trump convicted on all 34 felony counts. We get to call him a convicted felon all day long, every day of the year. Alex Jones is now liquidating his assets to pay the Sandy Hook families, which is long overdue, but doesn't even come close to covering the damage he's done. And Steve Bannon finally has to go to the pokey. Speaking of sloppy Steve, because this one is just so very satisfying, he has been around forever and getting away with it. And now that cerritic heap of room temp Old Forester pork fat and festering boil pus is about to find the out. My guest on this episode is my good friend Ron Filipkowski. You guys know Ron really well. He is amazing. He's one of my favorite accounts on Twitter, if not my favorite account on Twitter, but he's just also someone I love talking to. He talks the way I talk, but he's a lawyer and he's really smart. So he knows all about all cases Trump and Bannon and Navarro, et cetera, and we talk about all of that. We talk about the future of the other cases that Donald Trump is facing and crack a few jokes about Maga. So I hope you enjoy. I'm sure you will. Welcome back, my friend Ron Filipkowski, to the Are You Effing Kidding Me podcast. Hi, Ron.
Hello. Thanks for inviting me back. Appreciate it.
Oh, you're my favorite
I think this
guest.
is time number 3, right?
I think it's 4. No. I think this is 4.
Is it? Okay.
I think so.
Might be right.
I think the first time we talked was when one of Trump's indictments dropped. Probably the first set, I think, maybe, which was the hush money trial, right? The election interference trial. That was the first indictment that dropped, right?
Yes. Or no, I think it was the classified documents.
Was it?
I don't even remember. I think as far as the order of indictments, maybe New York was first, and then the documents, and then the Georgia, and then the J6 was last. I think.
Yeah, I think that's right, because I think I remember we talked, and Alvin Bragg was the first one out with indictments, and we were all joking, laughing about
that's right.
Yes, and so this is kind of a full circle moment. Because if that was the first time you were ever on the podcast, this is perfect, because now, unless you live in Iraq, everybody knows that Donald Trump has been found guilty on 34 felony counts related to that case, that very case. So let's talk about that, because his sentencing is coming up in July. I think July 11th, right? Maybe like right before the RNC. So let's talk about a couple of things related to the conviction. But first of all, what you anticipate in terms of what he's going to get sentencing wise. Is he going to get prison? Is he going to get house arrest? What's that going to look like? Also, does the conviction and being a convicted felon title move the needle, change the, calculus at all for anybody? If so, who and why? So let's start with the sentencing, what you expect.
So there's a couple things here, pushing pull here. This is a very unique situation because you have a situation of a criminal defendant who insults the judge and attacks the judge and his family on a regular basis. So that is, I've represented many thousands of criminal defendants. I think something like 7,000.
Wow.
I have never had one client do this to a judge who has their case. So is that supposed to be factored into his sentencing? No, it is not. But the judge is human. And so, that's something. The gag order violations certainly can be factored in as far as his defiance of court orders. But as far as like his insults of the judge personally, not something he's supposed to take into account. But how can he not? On the other hand, Mershon, he said this during the gag order violations, that he was fully aware that incarcerating someone running for president and a former president was a big deal. And that weighed heavily, and he wasn't going to do that unless Trump basically gave him no choice. So he's already given an indication that he's fully aware of the gravity of the situation and what could happen if he does sentence him to jail, which is why I think he probably won't. I mean, he could face three possibilities here. State prison, highly unlikely, with no prior criminal record. Number 2, county jail with probation, like do some time in jail, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. Very possible. Wouldn't rule it out, but I think probably not. I think most likely what he's going to end up with is like probation which, as I've commented on, I think the biggest problem for him on probation is some of the travel restrictions and the random drug testing. Because typically when you report for your monthly probation appointment, you have to be tested for drugs. And I'm not sure he can pass a drug test.
I mean, that you pointed out, that was the first time I had thought of that was when you tweeted that because I hadn't considered that before, and that is crazy because we know with him every accusation is a confession, and he's always accusing Biden now of being on drugs, which is hysterical to me. So it's really just the projection of him knowing that he can't do any of the things he does at all without it. As we saw, every time the Candyman would go visit him in New York, he was suddenly not falling asleep and farting in public in court. But like the drug testing component to it, I mean, that's pretty amazing. So he's just, was he not going to do drugs because he can't sustain any of this without that? Like he's just going to be a big sleepy farty blob.
Here's the other factor there is, they don't test for all drugs. So I'm thinking that he's going to figure out, because of his resources, what they test for. In other words, like when they do these screens, they test for certain prescription drugs, meth, coke, weed, all that kind of stuff. But there's a lot of real designer drugs out there that you can take, prescription drugs that a probation office would not test for in a routine test. So if I had to guess, I'd think he's looking for something like that, something he can get on to replace whatever he's been doing that will bypass a drug screen. I also speculated he may buy a Whizzinator, which many of my clients over the years have employed the prosthetic urine, where they get somebody else's urine and they go in there with the rubber penis and they squirt the urine that they get from somebody else, clean urine, into a cup that's actually not theirs. So two things are designed. Probation officers are supposed to do two things to prevent that. One, they're supposed to actually see the penis. They're supposed to see it, because people do use these fake devices to smuggle in urine. So a probation officer is not supposed to stand behind the person. They're supposed to actually observe a real penis go, which is why they make these devices that look like penises to sort of pass off as real. So, that's one issue. I mean, it could lead to some pretty funny moments here.
I mean, yeah, we've heard plenty about his toadstool peen from Stormy, but like the fact that some probation officer has to watch him whip it out, like, it's hysterical to me. But it's also how are we here?
Everyone who goes into a jail in America, everyone is strip searched by corrections officers and body cavity searched. They will check you to make sure if you're going into jail population. In other words, not somebody who's just getting arrested and getting right out. They don't have to go through this. But somebody who's doing like 30 days, it's a body cavity search because they're looking for people that smuggle drugs into the jail inside their body. And so they look for that for everybody. Now, whether they would make an exception for Trump and not do that, I don't know. So these are all like things that we can speculate about that are fun.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how fun, but they've never been tested, right? Like we've never had a former president that we're wondering, like, is he going to get, a random finger up his pooper? Like, because he's going to prison. Like, this is where we're at now.
They make you just bend over and spread your cheeks, is what they do.
Oh, they don't stick anything in there. They just look.
No, they just look in there.
Oh, so it's like a flashlight.
Yeah, kind of deal. Yeah. So, I mean, obviously the corrections officer who draws that duty is gonna have probably could write a book. I mean, or make some money off of it at some point.
Like literally, I've seen some shit. The story of Trump's cavity search. Like this is.
I mean, no McDonald's, no fast food. Obviously, jail food is atrocious.
Yeah.
It's mystery meat and stuff like that. So the question is, would he get, how much special treatment is he going to get here? Any of those things apply? I mean, of course, he may never get jail, but if he does, there's a lot of things here to think about.
Like the Secret Service, where do they go? Do they have
Secret
to
Service,
eat food? And, do they get to leave? They have shifts. Like it's sad.
Obviously, he would be separate from population. I mean, he's going to be in isolation. There's going to be no one else near him as far as inmates.
It's not going to be Oz. Yeah, it's not like
no. He's
No,
not going to be out there in the prison yard with a bunch of
no.
guys tatted up lifting
He's,
weights. No,
he's
that's
not going
not.
to be pushing the library cart.
No, no,
Right,
no.
right.
He'll have his own little private deal there, which is fine. I mean, I don't even care about. He could have a golden toilet for all I'm in his cell for all
Yeah,
I care. You
yeah,
know.
yeah. I would be content, honestly, with not that I wouldn't like to see him behind bars, but even like home imprisonment, home confinement, even like an anklet, like all that stuff, like just some real sort of consequence that you can sort of sink your teeth into that sucks for him in some way. Not that home confinement would suck because he's basically
Community
self-confining
service.
himself now that he's not on trial, but something like that. But the idea that he could also serve community service cracks me up. Like I want to see him picking up trash on the side of the highway. I know that's probably not going to happen, but I'd love it if it would.
Yeah, the problem is you can't like leave it open-ended because a lot of times judges will go, you just have to perform community service with a nonprofit organization. Well, obviously we know what that's going to lead to. Nothing.
Right.
He'll pick one that's like owned by some Trump
Yeah.
fan and do
Yeah.
nothing.
Yeah.
But sometimes judges will order you to do something specific. Like you said, you have to do your community service here at this place,
Yeah.
supervised by the state, you know.
Yeah. You can't
Most
get
likely
jumping in.
that's what he'll get.
Yeah. And it'll be something like that's not degrading because I think
Right.
Merchan is very keenly aware of looking like he's trying to impact the election. And
Right.
I think to your point about less likely jail time, I think he's sadly, but also it is good because this is, the appearance of impropriety matters to him versus say Alito. But I think in terms of if he did get community service, it wouldn't be something that we could all laugh at very easily. It'd probably like volunteer at a homeless shelter or something to that effect or whatever, nebulous thing or dog charity or something, which would be great. But yeah, I'd love to see it be very degrading for him and have to like change urinal cakes, somewhere. But I'm sure that that's not very likely. It'd be fun.
I mean, I was thinking about it. Like a lot of times they'll have people that are, businessmen and stuff like teach classes to like inmates or something like that, or on how to improve their life. But I was just thinking, like, what could he teach? Like, he doesn't know anything,
What?
like how to bankrupt businesses, like how to
Yeah.
play golf. I mean,
How to cheat at everything.
yeah, like I don't think we really want him teaching anybody anything, so.
God, no, and certainly not anything to do with sex because that I feel like that sort of got glossed over in all of the craziness. It's like Stormy Daniels is basically up there describing how much he sucks at sex and how embarrassing for him all of that was, and it didn't seem to move anything. I'm laughing my ass off because it's like the silk robe and the spanking, not hearing her, but like seeing the transcript of her describing that, like the pert plus in his bathroom, the fact that he didn't feed her dinner, like this dude sucks at all of that. Not that it's surprising.
A note about all of that is that before the trial, Merchan ruled that she was not allowed to testify about any of that stuff. She was only allowed to describe what sort of led up and say, then we had sex, and that was it.
Yeah.
However, Todd Blanche got up in his opening statement and, tried to deny that they even had sex, is what he said in the opening statement, which was an incredibly stupid, foolish, strategic move, totally unnecessary. But then Merchan and the state said, okay, well, since you've now opened the door, you've now denied that he had sex. Now we're going to let her get into some of the details of the sex in order to convince the jury that it actually happened. So she was only allowed to testify about that stuff because of Trump's own lawyer.
Oh my God. I don't think I realized that. I mean, Todd Blanche I'm not a lawyer, obviously you are, but it seemed to me from other lawyers talking about it that he made a lot of mistakes. And that seems to be a pretty big one because I would bet her testimony was really compelling. I heard that the jurors were paying very close attention to her testimony. And I wonder if that was a difference maker in the trial.
Yeah, well, he made a lot of mistakes, but I think most of the mistakes he made were because of Trump. Trump was making him do that. I think it's the case with a lot of Trump's lawyers that if they are allowed to argue the case the way they want to argue the case, they would be a lot more successful. But Trump does not allow them to do that. He demands that they that they approach it with the worst possible defenses. We saw that in the Engeron case. We saw that in the E. Jean Carroll trial. And we saw it in this trial. Like, there are really good defenses available in each of these cases, but he doesn't use them. He forces his and he has good lawyers, but he forces, except for Haba, but he forces lawyers to take stupid positions. I think he even forced her to do that. And I think that's also why Tacopina got off the case in January, because he saw the writing on the wall. He saw, this guy is going to force me to make a fool of myself, and I'm not doing it. I'm out. That's why I call him the smartest lawyer who's ever represented Donald Trump.
Right.
You know, he took a little cash and got out before shit hit the fan. You know?
Trump's ego was always going to be his undoing, and it's been his undoing not only in this criminal case, but in everything. Like, he can't shut up. He can't stop himself. He can't have his lawyers do the case the way they probably should, because his ego needs them to ask certain questions and probe certain things in certain ways. And it was always going to be his undoing. And that's what we're looking at now, I think.
There's no way that Blanche would have called Robert Costello as their defense witness, who is a disastrous witness, absolutely killed them. And all the reporting was that Trump world insisted upon Costello being called. And of course, all that did is make Cohen look good. Costello was supposed to destroy Cohen's credibility, but the problem is that allowed the state to bring in all the emails that Costello was sending to Cohen, which never would have come into the trial if they didn't call him as a witness, that showed that he was pressuring Cohen not to cooperate with the federal government, and doing that on Rudy and Trump's behalf, which is not what a lawyer is supposed to do. So it even made it more look like a mob outfit and a mafia family by calling a lawyer who's basically acting like a mob lawyer.
Yeah, and the whole thing, like you said, they were trying to tear Cohen down so that they would delegitimize, what he was saying, that he was lying about all of this stuff. And then Costello comes on the scene, and it's like, oh, well, now Cohen doesn't look like such a liar or a bad guy after.
I think he was like the best witness for Cohen to rehabilitate Cohen.
Yeah.
And I thought Cohen was brilliant.
Yeah.
I was very, very nervous. I told the guys at Midas, I said, if they lose this trial, it's going to be because of Michael Cohen loses his cool, loses his shit, or does what he has done in the past in interviews, which is try to minimize or downplay his own culpability and try and make himself out as a victim of Trump when he is not a victim of Trump. He is a co-conspirator. Right. And I thought, if he does any of that nonsense, which he has done in the past, this is not going to go well. But he did not do any of that. I mean, he testified exactly how I would have wanted him to, which was, he was just like, yep, I lied. Yep, I was a cultist. Yep, I fucked up. You're right about all that. But, Trump was right there with me doing it too.
Yeah, and I did it. And I did it for him. Like, I did it for him. That was compelling. And yes, sir, no, sirs, all that was like just sort of the chef's kiss. What do you say to people, lots of them, all of MAGA, all of the Republican Party, essentially, who are saying that trial period was a sham? Those charges never should have been brought. And then, of course, they dragged Garland in for another Benghazi Palooza hearing, because the conspiracy theory is that somehow Sleepy Joe Biden, who's so demented and so slow, he can't tie his own shoes, coordinated all of this, all of the trials, all of the investigations, all of the charges, but also that the DOJ and Merrick Garland were working together with Bragg to bring this case. So, like, what do you say to them about, first of all, the validity of the case, the validity of the charges, and the idea that this was somehow coordinated by Biden and Garland?
Yeah. So there's two main conspiracies here, right?
Right.
One is that Alvin Bragg ran for office on a campaign to get Trump. So that is not true. If you want to make that you could definitely make that argument about Letitia James. Yeah. Letitia James mentioned Trump many times during her campaign, which I am not a fan of. I don't think that she should have done that.
Yeah.
But she did. But she has nothing to do with this case. She's the attorney general. She doesn't do criminal prosecution. She does civil stuff. So she does some criminal prosecution, but not this. She doesn't have jurisdiction over this. And so Alvin Bragg did not run on a Get Trump platform. Alvin Bragg was running in 2021, long before all this stuff. So, and look, Alvin Bragg won his election with what? 87% of the vote. So he did not need to campaign on a Get Trump platform. He won very easily his election and was going to win very easily. So what they're doing is they're confusing. They're taking the stuff that Tish James did and imputing that to Alvin Bragg. I guess, they're both black prosecutors from New York, so it's all the same. They just take what Tish said and put it on Alvin. When you look at what Alvin said during his campaign, he never mentioned Trump. So that's one conspiracy. Conspiracy number two centers around Michael Colangelo, who that's where the Biden connection. So they have no proof whatsoever that the Biden administration, Garland, DOJ had anything at all to do. There's no paper trail, there's no emails, there's no nothing. The only evidence that they have is the fact that Michael Colangelo, who used to work in the New York Attorney General's office, left that office to go work for DOJ, then was hired by Alvin Bragg to not to prosecute Trump, as they what they're saying is that Merrick Garland and Joe Biden sent Colangelo into the office to prosecute Trump. There's a few problems with that theory. Number one, he was hired to do many things. He's hired to head up a division that prosecutes predatory landlords. And that's a brand new division that Alvin Bragg created that Colangelo is heading up. That's nothing to do with Trump, although he was a predatory landlord. But
yeah,
the point is that Colangelo does a whole bunch of other stuff in that office. And so that's number one. Number two, he was not the main guy here in the Trump prosecution. That was Joshua Steinglass did much more of the trial than Colangelo. Colangelo was one of three lawyers, and he did the opening statement and a few other things. But, he probably did 25% of the trial. So it's not like, they brought this guy in to get Trump when, he was just one of a few different prosecutors. So now what they've done is they want to subpoena all the emails and stuff between Bragg and Garland because they're looking for that smoking gun of Bragg saying to Garland, hey, I need you to send me Colangelo because he's the guy I need to get Trump. I mean, they're not, even if they thought that way, they're not stupid enough to have that conversation.
Right.
There's not going to be anything in writing that says that. They're not idiots like Trump world.
Exactly. Yeah, but then they also said that for 2 weeks, maybe a week and a half, which is a lifetime now in the news cycle, that Biden ordered the assassination of Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago when he wasn't even there. But they think that they're so calculating that they would have ordered the assassination of a former president, but not ever checked to see if he was literally there when they were going to assassinate him is remarkable. It's remarkable.
This is what I say. There's a consistent theme with Trump and MAGA world, not just Trump, but that whole universe. They always overplay their hand. They always go too far. In other words, there's always a good argument available to them to make. And the argument, they could have made with Bragg was just like, no one ever gets prosecuted for this. Why did it take so long? There's legitimate argument, and they're Democrats and all.
Why was it passed up on by originally, right?
There's reasonable, legitimate arguments you can make that this was political, but they make those, but they're never satisfied with stopping there. They have to always go to the conspiracies, which discredits all their other arguments. Yeah. So when you start arguing routine language in a search warrant was an assassination attempt, it just makes you look like a clown. Yeah, which they're very, very good at.
Speaking of clowns, Mike Johnson just put Scott Perry and Ronnie Jackson on the Intel committee, and Scott Perry had his cell phone seized in the January 6th investigation, which one would think would disqualify him from serving on a committee where he's got access to intelligence, and he's also basically acolyte of Donald Trump. But Ronnie Jackson is one of the most loyal sycophants for Trump, and now those two are on the Intel committee. Does that worry you? Because it keeps me up at night.
Not only does it worry me, yes, but this has caused more problems for Mike Johnson already today. there were a lot of members that are very senior members of Republican members of the House who wanted those 2 seats and who were very qualified, squeaky clean, not people that you're going to see on Fox News or Newsmax. These are there's many Republicans in Congress we don't even know, we never hear from, because they're actually there to try and do something positive on occasion, and that's why we don't see them on Fox, because that doesn't get, the fact that you want to lower insulin costs doesn't get you on a Fox hit, right?
No, you need to
but
jerk off a guy
Ronnie Jackson goes on there to talk about Biden's cognitive decline for his time,
Yeah.
So and they're pissed. The reporting is that there's a lot of Republicans today that are very, very upset that Ronnie Jackson and Scott Perry got these positions, and they got these positions because of Donald Trump. Donald Trump made the phone call. He was the one who wanted these 2 characters who are Trump loyalists and insurrectionist election deniers on this committee. The question is why? They have, obviously, Trump, all the reporting has no longer has access to classified briefings like some former presidents get because of the documents thing.
And candidates, by the way, get sometimes they get if they're the candidate for the Republican Party, right?
So he has no access to anything that's going on foreign policy wise, with like war in Ukraine, Israel. He has no access to classified information about that to use in his campaign or to use some other way, right? But now, in theory, he now has access with his 2 henchmen on the committee. Although it's a crime for them to pass along to anyone what they learn, but
crimes to them are nothing really.
They will justify it on the grounds that he's the real president. So
yeah, exactly. I mean, I said this the other day. There's really nothing at this point, nothing he can do, nothing they can do that would be a red line for the diehard like MAGA devotees. There's like nothing. I mean, I said like Trump could be burning the flag while jerking off Putin and saying death to America, live streaming on TikTok, and they would move the line to be like, well, he's really a patriot. He really
he's under a lot of stress.
Yeah. This is what Biden did to him. This is all Biden's doing. Yeah. I mean, this is where we are now. It's ridiculous, but that scares the shit out of me. And he could be doing it also because he knows the debate is coming up, and he might be like, shit, I don't know any of this stuff, not that he ever cared to, but I do think he's going to be going maybe to the debates. We'll see, maybe one, because if it's really hard to not be able to interrupt, no audience, he'll go to the one, and I think it's going to be a train wreck, and then we'll see some probably change, or he just won't go to the others. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, this debate format heavily favors Biden, which is the Trump just stepped into the trap by putting out there over and over again, anytime, any place, anywhere, any moderator, any format, you decide, I'll be there. What an idiot, when there's only one format that he does well in, which is one that allows him to be an idiot and yell and scream and ride roughshod over people, and have a live audience where he plants people in the audience, or to cheer every answer, boo Biden, or do what Steve Bannon did, which is bring in all Bill Clinton's ex-girlfriends allegedly, and sit them in the front row to stare at Hillary. These are the kind of things that Trump world does to try and get advantages in debates, because he doesn't know anything. He can't debate policy. And now all of those weapons and tools have been taken away from them in this format.
Yeah, it's crazy, because that was the in 2020, the debates were so hard to watch, even for somebody like you or me who really lives for this stuff, because Trump was constantly hammering him and constantly interrupting him. And it was just, you really had to take a breath and just get through it. And a lot of people couldn't do it, just couldn't do it. And so not nobody, but a lot of people tuned out. They couldn't watch him. And he will not be able to do that this time. So people are going to be able to listen to the substance of what the 2 men know side by side. And to your point, Trump knows nothing. He didn't know what the nuclear triad was. Marco Rubio rightly destroyed him for that. He still doesn't know what it is, I guarantee you. But so that's the thing. Let he's going to have to stand there and look stupid to Biden standing there and looking informed. So maybe he wants some of this intel, I don't know, so that he looks like he knows some things that he might not otherwise know. But he's also probably, unless they put it in a coloring book, not going to retain it anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
My attitude when I go into these debates, I'm a nervous wreck because like, I'm like a mom sending their kid off to kindergarten before a debate. That's my mentality, which is like with Joe, which is like, please, I know you've worked very hard for this moment and you're ready for it. You're totally ready. You're the guy, you're going to do fine. Everybody's going to like you, but still I'm like, as soon as the door to the bus shuts, I'm like, oh my God. I mean, Joe Biden has always been his whole life a great debater and really, really good on policy, but I always worried about Trump because he's polite and he's kind and he's a gentleman, and I always worry about Trump, running roughshod and bullying him.
Yeah.
But I'm a lot less worried with this format.
And I'll tell you what, even without the format, although I think it is definitely to Biden's benefit, but I think Biden, based on the last State of the Union too, I think he's learned. He's obviously very smart and very savvy about politics. He's learned how to go back at them, like giving it right back to them. He's like, all right, I'm not actually above this. Like, hey, Don, I know you're not busy on Wednesdays. Like that kind of thing, even though that was scripted, but the State of the Union was also scripted. But still, when he saw Marge and like the head to toe MAGA merch, and he was like, kind of like gave her that face that went viral. And I think he's learned a lot in the last 4 years as to how he can actually punch back. And look, Joe Biden's not above punching back. I mean, this is a guy with a notorious like temper. When he's pushed and prodded constantly, he'll snap, but not in a way that like Donald Trump will. I think he's actually able to hold his own better now with Trump, even with a Trump being an asshole, than he was in 2020.
Pushing Biden and the people around him and the Biden campaign to do that for a long time is former Republicans like me, like Lincoln Project guys, Republican Accountability Project guys, Kinzinger, Cheney, I think the former Republicans understood better than most. We're not the only ones who get this, but we totally get that this is the way to throw Trump off his game, which is go at him, use his own tactics against him because he's such a snowflake and he's so thin-skinned that he can't handle it. We saw that, in 2020 when Lincoln Project was running like commercials on Fox News during Hannity, to needle him, knowing that he was watching, and he would fly into the rage and just rage tweet all night after seeing a Lincoln Project commercial. Now, they were criticized by some for that, which is, hey, why are you doing that? Like, that's not really winning over any voters. That's just, you're spending all this money on a commercial for one person. But, it does rattle him. It does throw him off his game. He'll spend the whole next rally speech talking about it, so, and Joe doing it makes it much, much worse than the Lincoln Project or me or anybody else. I mean, he really can't handle Joe doing it. And so I think it's great. This is something we've all been pushing them to do, and they're doing it now. And I love it.
I do too. I've long, you and I are of the same mind on this. I've long since believed that like the idea that we ignore Trump and that we don't talk about Trump, we don't go at Trump, that's to our peril. You ignore him to your peril. There's a way to do it so that you go at him, so that you agitate him. So like the White House Correspondents' Dinner, I tweeted about him like just sitting there in the dark because he was losing his mind because the whole room was laughing at him over and over and over again. And he did predictably what he always does, which is lose his mind in this giant tweet storm in the middle of the night. And I think that if you highlight his crazy and push him to the point where he really can't stop, because he can't, then he just shows the world how unhinged he is, and he's worse than ever. So I definitely think that we ignore him to our peril.
At Midas, I mean, we devised this strategy where we were going to use his tactics against him, knowing that he wouldn't be able to handle it. All his gaffes, his flubs, his mispronounced words, getting dates wrong, names wrong. We clip every mistake, right? And his weight, his hair, his makeup, all of that stuff when he looks
farting
bad,
and snoring in public,
the Melania stuff. Where's Melania?
Where's Melania?
All of this is designed to get in his pea brain and rattle him, and it does.
Yeah, he does have a pea brain. He's a narcissist, and it does rattle him. And no one knows really where Melania is, although she did resurface after 12 days. Hold up in New York City, right? I think she came out finally to see her if she could see her own shadow or something like that.
Nobody even knew where she was, and then she emerges from Trump Tower, 3 or 4 days after Trump was gone, she finally comes out. My theory is like she was barricaded in there with Barron, which is really, really strange.
Yeah.
Like I totally leave him alone on social media, and I believe in that, even though he's 18 and all that kind of stuff. But we shouldn't pick on him on social media. But it is really, really odd that he never goes anywhere without his mother.
Yeah.
And like you've never seen him go anywhere or do anything on his own. He played in his high school yearbook, no sports, no activities, no clubs, no nothing.
Yeah.
What does this kid do? I mean, whenever they ask Trump that question, he can't answer it because he doesn't know.
He says he's very tall.
All he says is he's very tall and he's a good student.
Good student.
He's doing
Yeah.
very well, works very hard.
Yeah.
Trump doesn't know anything about his kid, but my question is like, what does his kid do? Not that I'm trying to pick on the kid, but it just seems like they're not a family at all.
No.
This is just a fake facade, this whole thing. Melania has not appeared at a public event with Donald Trump outside Mar-a-Lago since he leaving office in 3 years.
Oh my God.
Not one. I mean, she went to at the immigrant swearing in ceremony. He did not go.
Mhm.
So everywhere she's appeared, he's not there. Everywhere he goes, she's not there. She's not been at any campaign event. The only event that they appeared at together was only 2 times. One when they went down to vote in the midterms. Okay?
Yeah.
And she briefly appeared with him walking in to vote and walking out. And then her mom's funeral where they came and left in separate cars. And that's it in 3 years.
Yeah, well, we know from Stormy's testimony that they slept in separate bedrooms even back then. And when Trump was in office and they were talking about vaping, he referred to Barron as Melania's son. Melania has a son or has a child. It was really weird. Do you remember that? Where he was like, Melania has a son, and that's your kid. But it is. I'm not going to pick on him either. I don't pick on him on social media either because I don't think he's asked for it. I honestly think that that's the line, right? Like if he was going to become a surrogate, which was rumored for a while, then he's fair game. But he's not doing any of that. And we've never even heard him really speak. I don't think I've ever heard him speak, which is also something that is, odd. But I mean,
I've never seen him smile except for one posed photo. But look, I see him coming into Mar-a-Lago and stuff from time to time with his mom, and he never smiles.
Yeah.
He never really engages in conversation with anybody. So I mean, I don't know what's going on there, but my question would for Trump would be like, when's the last time you went golfing with him or throw the football with him or rode a bike with him or did anything with him?
Yeah. I think
went on a trip with him. Hey,
anywhere.
What about, have you ever taken him to an amusement park? Have you ever gone to the beach with him on a boat? Has he done anything that a father would do with their son?
I don't think he did any of that with any of his kids. Like, I mean, not just Barron, but like, I mean, I saw.
No, he sent them off to.
Yeah.
He sent them off to boarding school.
Like he was.
And then every summer they went with their mom to Czechoslovakia.
Yeah.
He never had any contact with them.
And you can see that in who they became as adults. And then hopefully, what I doubt, but the cycle gets broken, but I doubt for their kids. But it was his dad did that to him. He did that to them, and so on and so on. And you see that in their behavior because what's missing there was parental love and some sense that like somebody always had your back and you're always safe and always loved no matter what. And that was never there. That structure didn't exist for him. It didn't exist for his kids, and it doesn't exist for Barron. Well, maybe it does because of Melania, actually. Maybe she's very clear on providing that and not letting anybody else touch him because she's very protective.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it.
I think she doesn't allow him to do anything because she's protecting him from Trump.
Yeah, which is so sad because like, and she is also fair game. I don't ever give her any credit for anything.
Oh, she is.
Yeah.
She is.
Yeah. And according to what's that woman's name? Stephanie. What's the woman's name who was her friend who has the
Winston Wolkoff.
Don't give a fuck about Christmas decorations. Yeah. She said she knows exactly what she's doing and what she signed up for and what she's complicit. She's complicit in all of it. Okay, before you go listen to or watch the Bannon sentencing, because that's happening, right? Not sentencing. It's like what is it exactly? Because he's already been sentenced.
Some kind of motion to argue to stay out of prison longer. I mean, they shouldn't even be having this hearing. He should have already been ordered to go once his appeal was denied. But this is a very Trumpy judge, and he's just bending over backwards for Bannon. Meanwhile, his compatriot, Navarro, went straight to jail.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
It's weird. It's almost like we have two tiers of
different
justice or
judge.
something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but okay, let's just say, okay, I'll get to the rim questions really quickly, but potentially Sloppy Steve Bannon will be decomposing for the next 4.5 months, so to speak. Like if he goes in 2 weeks in prison for 4 months, he'll be there essentially during the election, like the very final couple weeks. He'll be in prison with Navarro.
Yeah, he'll probably be getting out right before the election. But yeah, all the critical time period he'll be in, which is very big. I've said, Steve Bannon is very influential in the MAGA movement, and his show is like 8 hours a day. He does a morning session and then an afternoon session. It's a long show. He brings in a whole steady stream of guests, members of Congress, activists, influencers. He really is the hub of a wheel of a network of MAGA people, and taking him off the board is a major piece to come off the board, which is why it was so stupid for him to drag this out so long. He could have had this 4 months done last year, and it wouldn't have interfered with anything, with election wise. But now, since he's delayed it so long, he shot himself in the foot, because now he's going to be in during the most important time really of his life in politics. This is the most important window of time, and he's going to be spending it behind bars.
Yeah, he's going to be flooding the prison cell with shit versus flooding the zone with shit, which is a good thing for the rest of us. So really fast before you go. 3 really rapid fire random questions, okay?
Okay.
1, whose blood alcohol level is higher right now, Jeanine Pirro or Ronnie Jackson?
I'm going to say if Ronnie's in Texas, that it's a little bit earlier. So maybe not, because he's in Amarillo, Texas. So it would only be like 10:30 in Texas, and Gene's on the East Coast. So I'm going to say Gene. Yeah. Although it's both pretty high.
Yeah.
Left over from last night,
Right,
which is really funny, because like Jean Pirro was on Fox last night talking about the jurors who have people with alcohol and drug problems in their families. And I'm like, why are you talking? You're the last person who should be talking about this issue.
It's a drunk watching you on TV. Like you should, and that's the other thing. It's the way that they go after Hunter for his addiction. Although I dragged Don Jr. for being a fucking crackhead too, but it's not the same. Question 2, who will fare better in prison, Steve Bannon or Peter Navarro?
Oh, Navarro for sure, because Bannon, I don't think Navarro was like a drug addict or alcohol like Steve, and Steve's going to have a really rough detox. That's going to be, going through cold turkey. Now, I know a lot of inmates who ferment. They'll use like fruits and stuff from the cafeteria and ferment their own alcohol in there. So I do know of inmates who do that, but no, I think Steve's going to have a really, really hard time. He's going to probably lose a lot of weight, and but that first week detoxing off the alcohol is going to be rough.
Yeah, he's going to be fermenting in his cirrhotic liver. I always joke that he's going to finish decomposing in there. Number 3, last one. If aliens came to Earth and asked you to give them our dumbest member of Congress, who are you sending? I have my answer. I bet yours.
It's like Tuberville and Boebert. Like that's like right there. I mean, Gomert's not there anymore, but Gomert was actually he actually graduated from law school, so he's got.
That's the guy who spit his teeth out, right? Yeah.
So I'm gonna say Tuberville is dumb as a fence post. I mean, I've listened to a lot of Tuberville interviews. It's like he's mind-numbingly stupid, and of course Boebert doesn't know anything either. But she's a little more savvy than him, though.
Yeah,
he has no instincts either for politics whatsoever. He's just dumb. He doesn't even know how to hide his stupidity with bullshit. He doesn't even have a line of bullshit. He's just I'm an idiot and I'm going to prove it to you today.
Yeah. Putin's a nice guy. He
I'm
didn't do
gonna say
nothing to go into Ukraine, and he just wanted to check on them, make sure they were doing okay, and their cats
you
had
know,
food, their pets, their plants were watered.
I've heard people say Green is not smart. I totally disagree with that. I think Green is smart. I think she's very cagey and cunning. Just she has the same intelligence that Trump has. Like Trump is dumb in a lot of areas, but he's cunning and cagey and conniving and fairly good at manipulating people. And that's sort of where Green is. Green has that intelligence too, but like
Yeah.
so I would not put Green in that category. I think there's 100 people dumber than Green.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
she
I'm going to
has
say
a
Tuberville
reading
for the
issue.
Senate, Boebert in the House.
Oh yeah, I think those are good answers. Like, they would have been my choice too. But I think Marjorie Taylor Greene has like a reading comprehension sort of problem, because if you watch the way she reads when she follows with her finger, teachers are always like, "That's
Oh
fine."
yeah,
Well, she just doesn't speak articulately, and she misspeaks all the time, like indictable and stuff. But yeah, and she's also like Trump, very good at getting the media to give her all of their attention. I mean, you see those people on the steps of the Capitol, and Marge is
yeah.
talking and holding court, and their entire press pool is just like swarmed
Like
around her.
she has a plan and a strategy, like whether you agree with it or not, like or hate it, but at
Yeah.
least she has like a plan. Whereas
Yeah.
like a Tuberville and a Boebert, they're just like running through each day. They don't really have much of a plan.
Yeah, like Tuberville's asked about IVF, and he's like, "No, that's bad. You don't want them making babies." And it's like, "What? Oh, we want babies. Babies are good."
He's like, he didn't even know what it was.
Is that a
He
play?
literally had never heard of in vitro fertilization. He's like, they can do that?
Ivy who?
How's
I
that
don't know
work?
her.
That's not in the Bible.
I did not run that play, so I don't know that one.
Yeah. Like Marge at least knows some things,
Right. Some things. I mean, she certainly knows how to find pictures of Hunter Biden's cock on the internet. So
Right.
she definitely knows how to find some things. It was funny.
Oh,
She
yeah.
posted that picture of the court drawing, which was a drawing of a picture of Hunter Biden naked.
She
Like,
loves the
just
Hunter
loves it.
nudes.
She can't quit
Yeah.
his cock. But on that note, you're gonna go see what happens to
go.
Bannon, and hopefully they lock his ass up. Thank you so much, Ron Filipkowski. I always enjoy talking to you. I know my friends and family and everybody I know loves listening to you, and all the listeners who listen to my podcast do too. So thank you
Cool.
very much. Looking forward to your commentary on Sloppy Steve Bannon. Thanks everybody, and we'll see you next week. Bye, Ron.
Bye.